Rich Brian, formerly known as Rich Chiga. If you have not seen the video online of him explaining how to microwave bread, I highly recommend it. I did not know how to microwave bread before I saw this video. It's very informative. I really think that you shouldn't miss it. It's one of the best YouTube videos I've honestly watched all year. That part was not ironic at all. To be honest, Rich Chiga has kind of slipped by me up until this point, but to my understanding he has released basically just a shit ton of singles ever since like mid-2016 when he released That Stick. I was not anticipating this record or anything. I honestly just heard about it because of hype, but I am glad that I heard about it because this project honestly has a very distinct personal lyrical side of things that I found to be pretty relatable, and I think that a lot of the lyrics are very straight to the point and not too complex on purpose. He's pretty much just speaking from his experience, what he knows, which is something that I appreciate about it, especially since he is 18 and I am 18, 19 in a few weeks, but you know, who's really keeping track. But despite this kind of cool approach to the lyrics, I do feel like in a pretty fair amount of the tracks on this album we are getting just bars that are so cringy. I don't know why anyone would ever put them into an album, like the final project of an album. It's pretty bad. So there is that. He is not a perfect lyricist by any means, but I do think that the intention behind a lot of these songs is pretty interesting. Another thing that seems to kind of turn up a lot on this project is how Brian feels about his rise to fame / popularity, whatever you want to call it, and how grateful he is for it and how his life has changed as a result of it. It's very introspective. As far as the production goes on this album, to my understanding, Rich Brian produced this almost entirely himself with a few people to help him, but it is very impressive that an 18-year-old can, you know, rap, produce all his own beats, direct all his own music videos. He just really has his shit together, and it's pretty admirable. And while the production definitely isn't as generic as it could have been, I do think it definitely could have been a little more interesting. There kind of are a lack of beat switches or things to make these tracks feel gratifying in the long term. They're kind of just catchy, and then there's not much more to discover there. Still, it does kind of fit Brian's style of rapping, which is very straightforward, very one note. It's kind of, he has a very low-pitched voice, it's kind of monotonous, and I think that he does pull off this sound fairly effectively. I don't think you necessarily need to have a ton of vocal range to have vocals be effective on an album. I think it kind of adds to its character, but I do think that a full project with this same vocal approach just got a little redundant, and I was kind of done with it after the 5th or 6th track.
It's also worth mentioning that I feel like Brian's speed on Amen is extremely impressive, and I feel like if he had carried this kind of element to some of his other songs, it would have been a little more interesting. But I definitely do think as an opening track it definitely works, and it captivates me and makes me want to listen to the project further, so that was a really good decision.
And I was surprised with how depressive and moody some tracks like Introvert and Cold were. I would personally prefer Cold just because I feel like it's written a little bit better. But on Cold, I really like the wispy atmospheric synth throughout it. The synthetic pianos are a nice touch as well. On Introvert, I like the bouncy synth line, I like the drumming on this track, I think it's pretty hard hitting. And you know, I think that this teenage angst, so to speak, even though he's technically an adult, definitely works lyrically to his advantage. I can kind of I feel what he's feeling because I am his age and I am very introverted just naturally. I actually really enjoy the thematic intention on Glow Like That. It's a song about a 2-month relationship. It's the only relationship that Brian's ever been in, and pretty much just its emotional effect on him. And I think that it's kind of cool that he decided to talk about such a trivial event, maybe in the eyes of other people who have been in long-term relationships or been dating for years and years and years, but mentioning stuff like this and how it's affected him, and how something that's so small to someone else can be such a big deal in the eyes of a person who hasn't really experienced much else is pretty important, and I really like it. I also really like kind of the hazy, smooth guitars on the production of this track. Trespass is definitely another banger here. I really enjoy this hook. It's so catchy, and it's one of the more trap-influenced tracks on this album. In terms of songs like Flight, I really enjoy that he's using this imagery of a plane and travel to maybe like take in all of the stuff that's been happening to him in his life in the past few years to get him to the point where he is. It kind of reminds me of like when I drive from my mom's house to my dad's house. It's like a road trip that I make all the time because when I'm home in Ohio, I like gotta visit my dad too, usually for the holidays, so I have spent a lot of time in the car, and it kind of, like, that little pause in time kind of makes me consider, like, wait, like, where was I, like, a year ago when I was making this same drive on Thanksgiving break? Like, how much has my life changed since then? How have I grown since then? How have I gotten more towards my goals since then? And I can imagine for someone who's blown up so much like Rich Brian has, it would be a way more like emotionally intense moment.
This kind of goes along with tracks like Arizona. I also really enjoyed the feature on Arizona as well as the feature on Little Prince. I like how with both of these songs they kind of feel more mellow, a little bit more somber. And I really enjoy that we are getting a female vocal presence in Little Prince. I wish that Rich Brian had kind of sprinkled in a few more features throughout this album, because as an MC, he just definitely doesn't interest me enough to make like a 45 to 50 minute project interesting without more features.
There are some moments that like the lyrical cringe is just a little too much for me. But before I mention those songs, I just wanted to say right off the bat, the line Indonesian MC Hammer in this bitch is like my favorite fucking line on this album. I think it's fucking hilarious. So he does pull it off sometimes, but on tracks like Kitty or on Chaos, it's just like, dude, like, come on. You can do better than that. Chaos is just like a fucking cringe fest. Like, that is just infested with terrible bars. And there's not much that I can really take away from it besides liking the beat. And Kitty, dear God, this track is basically about Rich Brian having sex with some random girl and then figuring out that it's like his friend's sister, and it's just like, okay, first of all, like, that is so generic and like fucking run-of-the-mill to begin with, but like the way that he describes it is just like, he's just explaining what's happening. Like, he's not even going into like remote detail about like why we should give a shit. It's just like, this happened, this happened, this happened, and then I figured out it was my friend's sister. It's just not good. And then with tracks like See Me and Enemies, it's just kind of like they're not adding anything to this album whatsoever. Like, the beat sounds very similar to the rest of the album. There are no lyrical moments that really stand out. And for the most part, you could say that a decent amount of these songs are kind of forgettable in the grand scheme of things. Like, no track on here is really begging me to come back to the project and listen to it. Don't get me wrong though, honestly, I did enjoy this project. It kind of like reads to me just straight up like potential. Like, I really think that if Rich Brian sticks around and continues releasing material, he's only going to get better through time, and I'm definitely excited to hear what he has coming down the pipe. And I do genuinely mean that, because I think that this project has a lot going for it. It's just that it's kind of ruined by little technical things that could have been a lot better. Thank you so much for watching this video. Recently with my schedule, what I've been doing is kind of just reviewing things on YouTube and then going through and writing reviews separately, because I do want to like apply for internships and such, where my website would kind of serve as like a resume. I mean, not completely obviously, but it's like, it would be a big part of my application, and I want to keep keeping on track with new releases for the most part on there, so that potential employers could look at that. I think that it would help, and I mean, it's true that like I do have time to edit, so like what I say is definitely more cohesive and makes more sense. It just naturally is better, so I'm going to keep doing that over there. If you want to see written reviews of any of like the things that I post on here, it will be over on the Sound Binge as soon as I get to it. I have like fucking like 5 things to do for, I'm sorry about the car alarm. I have like fucking 5 things to do for this one class that I have tomorrow, and it's like ridiculous that I'm even actually filming this video right now because I should be working. But I will try to get that up by at least Friday. I have like pretty much a final draft of both. I just have to go through and change a few words, maybe just taking that little extra step, and then I'll be done. I'll be pretty much up to date because I do feel really behind on that blog. But I will be staying as up to date as possible on this channel. I think I'm going to talk about the new US Girls on Friday, Saturday type deal, and hopefully I will have a set schedule, but actually recently I've been feeling a lot less stressed because I'm not like confined to like a certain day to get things done. Tuesday is actually a terrible day for me to get things done too, because like I wake up at like maybe 12 because I don't have class until 2, but then like I want to get it done before class, so I'm like frantically typing in those 2 hours and then I'm not done, and then I'm like typing halfway through art history and not paying attention at all. Not that I would be paying attention, but like, you know what I mean. So yeah, I guess I just would feel less guilty. Anyway, please subscribe to this channel, that would be really awesome, and keep your eye out for more videos coming down the pipe soon in the near future. I love you, and thank you for watching this video.